What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Enoch. You know that's my brother James. We got our first guest in the building, Ron. This is the Blood Brothers Podcast. Let's go! To the Jordan. Welcome back to the Blood Brothers Podcast, everybody. Y'all know how we like to do it. Before we get going, let's bow our heads. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. Thank you for this moment. Use us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Hey to the men.
What's up? Talk to the people, man.
Our mission statement will never change. Remaining consistent, empowering men to become leaders in society under God's law. Consequently, men, women, and other children will understand the foundations of a real man.
Yes, sir. We got our first guest in the building. Ron, what up, man?
What's up? Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm so excited. So, if y'all watched last week, we were very sad. We had some technical difficulties, and to say the least. But Ron, being the mature, reliable friend that he is, he held us down. So, Ron, thank you for your patience, and thank you for just going through the process with us. You are our first guest, so we have never done this yet.
Third time's a charm.
Third time has to be the charm. So the topic matter today, the discipline of vision. I actually got this from one of my mentors. His name is Dr. Miles Monroe, and he always talks about sight and vision. So today we're going to get into that and how it plays and forms your thoughts, and then your thoughts become your actions, and then your action actually becomes your lifestyle. So that's big. So let's start with Ron today. Ron, give a little introduction. Where you from first?
Sure. So I'm Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn, New York. Okay. And you lived there your whole life?
Yeah, pretty much, right.
Okay. And let me ask you. So what elementary school did you go to?
PS 158 in East New York.
Okay. And how was your experience in that environment?
Elementary school was cool. The teachers were all very dedicated. I loved my friends, the people that I interacted with at the school. It was a good experience.
Do you still have friends from your elementary years, or no? You kind of grew out of.
I grew out of that. I'm not the best with keeping up with folks from like elementary, junior high. Barely even high school, really.
I mean, I don't blame you. Enoch is probably one of very few friends that I have from high school that I could say like from my teenage years.
Yeah.
So let's get into middle school. What middle school did you attend?
So it's IS 292, also in East New York.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to PS 276 when I was a kid.
So it's not too far, right.
Yeah.
So what was your experience like in that school?
It was cool. It was a little different. First interaction with metal detectors in junior high school. It's a little alarming, but they were trying their best to keep contraband out the school, so it was a little different.
Okay.
But the experience was good though. I was first introduced to law and government. Okay. That's where I really started to get some insight on what my future goals were going to be.
Okay, so basically through the system, you it planted a seed in your mind that you could water through the process of trying to become whatever it is you decide to become.
Right.
I like that.
Right. So like in junior high, and picking a high school, the counselors knew that I wanted to go into law, so they directed me in a school that they thought would be best for that.
Okay, and what school was that?
Samuel J. Tilden High School, Brooklyn, in the Flatbush area.
Flatbush, nice.
So your counselors from middle school knew that you wanted to follow up law going into high school?
Right, they did know that. It was always my goal to become a lawyer, be in law and government, for sure.
Nice.
What was your first introduction to that?
Really, I would say junior high school. That's really where I was first introduced to it. Before that, it was just a kid talking about something he knew not much about, just whatever I saw on TV. But as far as like a real introduction, I would say junior high school.
Wow.
So what type of programs did they offer in your high school that propelled you to take the next step into law?
Of course. In high school, I was introduced to their mock trial team.
Mock trial, nice.
Mock trial is like when you conduct a fake trial against other kids in your school or against kids in other schools, and you compete. You do opening statements, closing arguments, direct examination, cross examination, witness preparation, all that good stuff, and it's really fun.
So
how'd you find that? Did you go looking for that? Because how did you even know they had that in school?
Yeah.
If you just listen out, you'll hear all the little things that are going on in the school, and they just caught my attention. I said, that sounds like fun.
Wow.
Being a competitive kid, it's good to have competition as a way to really drive you to do something that you like. So it worked out well.
We actually were talking about this last episode, how competitive sports and things of that nature, it brings out such quality principles in people. And even if you don't become a professional in that area, the lessons that you learn through the process, you can actually apply them across the board. We were talking about Kobe and the Mamba mentality and how he had that with basketball, but then it automatically went across the board. And it's such a beautiful thing to see that you applied the principles there and it propelled you into college. So let's talk about your college experience. Which college did you attend?
St. John's University, Queens campus. That was a great experience. I joined the mock trial team there, which was a different experience. It was very competitive. It was taught by actual practicing lawyers who were all phenomenal, and they knew exactly what they were doing and how to break it down to us. It was a great experience.
Before we even get to college, how did you stay on that path living in Brooklyn from middle school to high school with the same mindset to bring that to college?
True.
It was just my goal, and my personality is once I really like something, I lock in on it, and it becomes like a part of, like a cornerstone, a part of who I am. So I always knew that's what I wanted to do. So there was nothing that was going to deter me from doing that. Plus, my mother, she was also a Christian woman, raised me in the church, and her way of protecting me was sheltering me. So that's what she did. She made sure I stayed in the house as much as she could control. And that was how we made it through.
Because I know sometimes people say, oh, it's easy to go in the direction of being a lawyer if you're in a community where it's not urban and the path is a lot easier. There's so much distractions in Brooklyn. So when someone can see someone like you that can make it, I feel like you can be a huge inspiration for young kids.
I appreciate that. I think that really it comes down to just self-discipline. You have to know what your goals are, and you have to know that you have to put those things first above all the other distractions, everything else that comes your way. But I think once you can do that, there's nothing you can't do.
One thing that you hinted on too was your mother's influence. From what I got from that was she created a culture that allowed you to become what you needed to become or what you wanted to become. So she set the guidelines, which sometimes rubs people wrong, right? When you have standards and you have guidelines, we always talk about this. It's like people take such offense to that, and it's challenging. This is one of my challenges. So this is a personal statement, but it's challenging for me because I'm very structured in my thoughts. I'm very disciplined in who I want around me, who I want around my kids, what kind of conversations, what kind of music I listen to. Everything is I'm very mindful of it. So when you're like that, I'll say this: eagles fly alone most of the time, but occasionally you'll see them together. And I think people who share that like-minded mentality, it makes it a lot easier for them to get along, aka us.
Right.
So let me ask you about St. John's. You said that obviously Enoch brought up, the cultural impact of Brooklyn and how it's hard to, navigate through it. How were your teachers in the mock trial and in school?
The teachers were great. The people who helped us prepare for mock trial at St. John's were phenomenal. They really broke us down, and I think that's the best way to build people up is to break them down to the most basic components. So they made sure to break us down on our grammar, how we spoke, our English. So many people mispronounce words in our households. Like it's not bathroom, it's bathroom, right? Like it's now I'm gonna ask you a question. I'm gonna ask you a question, and they would drill it. They would drill it like every day, so that we wouldn't go out there in the world sounding like we didn't know what we were talking about. And I think that that's huge. Knowing how to present in the world as a large picture, it's very important.
So as far as your teachers, I mean, we always say our community only promotes basketball or some kind of sports or music
Yeah.
or rap. And it's like when I think of opportunity, the most successful people aren't always in sports, right? There's so many
Right.
avenues for children to become successful in. So what I guess the best question would be, did you have any people that look like us to help influence you through the process?
Well, those two coaches, assistant coaches of the mock trial team at St. John's, were both African American men.
Wow.
So it
Okay.
wasn't them just talking to me from their perspective as lawyers, but their perspective as men, as black men,
Yep.
as people who know the discrimination that I was going to face in the world, and to try to lessen that to some degree, it was about preparing me to present well in front of them, right? Because the people who were judging us
Yeah.
were predominantly white men.
Yeah.
So we need to know how to present in front of them, and speaking well is one tool that they taught us, which is invaluable.
Wow,
That's
that's
beautiful.
important because growing up in the hood, if you speak proper, you talking white.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
That perception is incorrect one, right? So it's just talking properly, and that's accepted, by mainstream um, white,
Yeah. Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
it's important to be able to navigate that for sure.
Now I think that's important to see because especially in the climate we're in now, I honestly believe that your purpose is gonna seriously grow
It's definitely
because
gonna manifest. Definitely.
yes, because young kids are gonna be able to see like, wow, there's a black lawyer right there. I've never seen because me growing up, I never saw a black lawyer
Ever.
Right.
ever.
Ever.
So
Ever.
you being that, I feel like your influence is gonna be huge, especially in the climate that we in right now.
I appreciate that.
Do you think? Let me ask you guys a question, right? And I guess I'll ask Ron first. Do you think that if, as a culture and a community, we promoted these other avenues of success, that we would be able to accomplish more generational wealth?
Oh, absolutely. I think not only just promoting these careers, professional careers, but also teaching each other how to hold on to wealth. We let go of it at a higher clip
Yep.
than many other races. So like it's important to not just acquire the wealth, but to just hold on to it. When we get inheritance, when our parents leave us things,
Yep.
we have to invest those things. We have to hold on to them. We can't just sell it
Yeah.
because what we do is we sell our seat at the table, really.
Yes.
So we need to hold on to those things.
I like that. And one thing I will say too is, we talk about this a lot. Obviously, we all have kids, which we'll get into, but like life insurance, having property, these type of things that help the next generation. So, what's your nationality?
So my mother's family is from Panama, and my
Okay.
father was born in Haiti.
Okay. So
My
y'all
Haitian
got this in
brother.
common. All
My
Yes,
right.
brother,
sir.
my
Yes,
brother.
All right, let me
sir.
let me ask you guys this, right? Because I'm struggling, right? Like the Caribbean lifestyle.
Yeah.
I'm Puerto Rican and black.
Okay.
So my perspective on things, I would say, is very different than you guys because of your upbringing, right? What would you say was the biggest challenge with your, I guess let's start with your mom. With your mom, what was your biggest challenge with her growing up?
Um, for me, I felt like it was just her level of strictness. She was very strict.
Yeah.
She played no games, right?
Yeah.
So like sometimes I felt like it was just too much. Like I wasn't allowed to have my own personality, my own space to have my own ideas. But I understand why she did what she did as an adult, as a parent.
Yeah.
I understand it more and I get it. But at the time, it was hard to get. It was hard to
And
get.
it's the same thing with your father, right? Speaking on the
Uh,
Haitian side.
yeah, for the most part, like
Mhm.
he was definitely way more lax than she was,
Mhm.
but also just very like disciplined in what he expects
Mhm.
out of me. Like there was no wiggle room there. It was you
Yeah.
should be performing. You should be doing if you're in school, you should be
Yeah.
doing well in school. You working, you should be doing well in your work. So both of them are very strict in those ways.
Obviously,
Sure.
you come from a Caribbean background.
But
What was it like, or what was your struggle growing up as far as your relationship with your mom, if you had one?
I would definitely say that my mother was very strict.
Okay.
She played no games, to say it nicely.
Mhm.
At times it felt difficult to express who I was or have my own thoughts because she believed in just sheltering me so much, and that kind of stifles out the creative process, thinking about things abstractly.
Yeah.
So that was a struggle, and I, as a parent and as an adult now, I get why she did it. It was to protect me, but at the time, it was very hard to see that.
Yeah, and now you have a Haitian father, and I have Haitian parents, so I understand that strict discipline. Now, you love who you become because of it, right?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, there's some drawbacks, right? So being in a sheltered household, socializing wasn't priority, right?
Exactly.
So like,
same here.
So like, I love people, but man, sometimes I just don't socialize as well as I'd want to be, as well as I'd want to, because that wasn't a focus in growing up, But otherwise, I appreciate the upbringing. I
Because of the
appreciate
discipline, right?
exactly the discipline that they instilled in me at a young age. I really understand how that's propelled me now, past my counterparts. So that was huge.
So I'm guessing you probably, I don't know if you deal with the same thing me, but I want my kids to have the same discipline, but I don't want to be as strict as my parents was.
Good luck. That's the balance.
I know,
that's the balance.
it's tough.
And it's tough. It's very, very tough. I struggle with that daily as a parent. It's very, very tough.
So do you guys, all right, let me ask you this, right? And obviously I grew up differently. My parents, my father was strict to a certain point, to a certain age, right? I would say maybe till I hit my teenage years, but I don't think he stopped being strict. I just rebelled, right? It was much different. I was very outspoken. Like the things that you're talking about were actually priorities to me, but it could be because my upbringing, as far as like I was in the modeling industry for a long time. So self-expression was the norm. Speaking up for yourself, having a personality, being able to articulate yourself. You better have your own opinion. Like these kind of things are very important in that world. And I think what happened was it translated into me as an adult. So when I hear, like Enoch will tell me, he'll explain to me certain things. You're kind of just verifying what he's saying. It makes me think, okay, so as a parent, if you stifle your child's ability to think, right? Yes, you might get disciplined, but at the same time, doesn't it counteract their ability to make their own decisions in a way, or have that vocal confidence? Because obviously you're a lawyer now, so you're confident. Your confidence is probably rooted in your discipline, but you probably had to get over that hurdle of vocalizing it, and it probably stemmed from your upbringing, not being able to have that voice that you always wanted to say. And I guess the next question would be, so obviously you have a daughter, Maddie, my princess. Enoch also has 2 kids, and I have two sons. Enoch has a boy and a girl. You have a daughter. Cool. Now, we all take on different parenting strategies. Let me ask you this, both of you guys. So we'll go around first. How do you balance the discipline and letting your child be able to express themselves?
So, unlike my parents, I like to explain as much as I can to my daughter so that she can understand what's going on. So it's not just you got to go to bed, it's bedtime. It's you need to go to bed because tomorrow you have school. In order to be productive in school, you need to have energy. In order to have the energy, you have to have a full night's rest.
Love it.
So then, it's not just daddy wants me to go to bed because he doesn't want to hang out with me anymore. It's daddy wants me to do well tomorrow. He wants me to be productive and good in school and have energy and not be tired. So it's like discipline, but also the reasoning behind my discipline so that she understands it. So it's not that I'm just shutting her way or I'm stifling her ability to think about the bigger picture. I give her the bigger picture. She understands it. It doesn't help her go to bed though.
No, of course. That's nice, Dad. But I'm not going to bed right now. I'm not tired.
So, I like your explanation, but still. But that's the struggle we go through. It's a struggle.
And I think that's the difference, being able to discipline and explain why. Because growing up, it was do this because I said, period.
Because I said, period.
Ain't no talking back. But now it's trying to
with the T at the end, right?
Exactly.
Somehow. Right.
All right. So look, I've been doing this 10 years, right? And my father was a black man, and he was like that too. Like, don't talk back, that kind of thing. It didn't work, obviously, and it wasn't gonna work ever because it still doesn't work till this day.
Here we
So,
are.
so, all right, I raised Cam to vocalize himself from day one. From day, like Cam's personality, we have open dialogue. That's what I call it. Now, one thing I will say is what I did was I put restrictions on the dialogue. So when I say that, it's this, right? If I say something, let me speak, then you can speak, then I'll respond, then you'll respond. But after the fourth time, that's it. So say everything you have to say. We're not going to go, this is not a back and forth kind of thing. But I do want you to understand the root of what I'm saying. So I force him to ask questions. Now, I do this, I mean, obviously it's a little different for me, but I do this because I have my son 50% of the time. So this was actually the motivating factor behind it. Obviously, I wanted him to be able to vocalize himself, but more than that, I didn't want him to think that whatever someone tells him is the right thing. I wanted him to understand the root of what is the next person telling you, and it doesn't validate your principles. Right? So for me, the challenge is I'm not with him all the time. And I fear that he'll get lost in society through not having a voice or being scared to express himself. So I overcompensated that with I explain it to him, but after I explain it to him, I ask him, does he have any questions? Then the questions come. Then I'll explain even more.
Hold on 1 second. I'm just realizing something. Ron, correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't his dialogues kind of sound like a courtroom? How legally it's supposed to happen? I speak, you listen.
It does.
It does,
it
right?
does. Everyone takes turns. You go back and forth until the evidence is really out there. So that it's kind of very similar, right?
That's a good analogy. I like that. And one thing I will say, even more than that too, right? You remember growing up where it was like if you talk back to your parents, like that was like a white thing, or you're right?
Right.
Now me, I never adopted that philosophy or that ideology. And I did it specifically because of this, right? When Cam comes to me every other weekend, he briefs me on his life. So imagine if I stifled his voice.
Right.
He would never be able to tell me the things that he tells me everything. He lets it. And sometimes I'll be like, I'm like this. And
close the doors. Close the floodgates.
I'm like, oh God. But what it is I really respect our relationship. And trust me, when I was watching him as he was going through his problem, Enoch was very strict. And I'm like, yo, bro, listen, I get it. Like, I understand the strictness. But what I learned through the process is when you really love your child and you have that dialogue with them, they're more scared to disappoint you than actually get in trouble. And when they start taking that approach, it allows you to put into principles that they could follow, where they know, I want to do good at school because I want to do good at school, but I want to make daddy proud. And reassuring them with that affirmation after they do the good things without you having to tell them, it's a testament to who you are as a father. I just want to throw that out there for you guys.
I agree.
You know. So let me ask you this: how was your relationship with your dad?
Mine, it's great. It's great. As an adult, I really look to him for information because he's a wealth of information. He knows how to do practically anything, from fix any part of a car to finding the stud when it seems impossible in your house so you can hang something. All these little things. He's very, very, very useful. So I would say we're relatively close.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. Through the process of your upbringing, obviously you live with your mom. How does or what age did you feel like, or if you did feel like I really need to, hone in with my father, like really just focus in on him because I'm becoming a man, and mommy's great, but mommy can't show me how to be a man. What age do you think that clicked for you?
That's interesting. I guess in that regard, I might have been a late bloomer. My father and we fell out for a few years, right, I would say, towards the end of college.
Okay.
So those years were just gone. I would say sometime after that, maybe in law school, maybe even around the time Madison was born, we reconnected. And when we reconnected is when I realized how much I still have to learn from this man. And I thought that was a great time in my life for us to work on that relationship.
And I think even when we have fallen out, because I mean, me and my father, we aren't that close either, but obviously the dynamics are much different as far as our moral stance. So for me, we had a episode where we talk about, you know, morals or principles over relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and how when you adopt that ideology, you can't adjust it according to relations. You know, it has to
Right.
be principle driven, because
Mm-hmm.
let's say this, right? Let's say your dad, he wasn't a good role model in that aspect where you're like, I can't look to him to be a good father or get advice to be a good father.
Mm-hmm.
Now it puts you in a position where you have to morally adjust if you want to have a relationship with them, right? You have to
Right.
say, oh, I have to accept this from you because you're my dad. And I think my struggle, and Enoch, I don't know if he has it as much, because his
Mm.
parents, one thing I will say, I love his parents, might, you know, they might be strict, but I love the fact that they're very together. They're
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
You can't
Yep.
break them. You can't.
Yeah.
And I admire, I'm telling you, when
Yeah.
I admire it. But
Yeah.
listening to you saying you rekindled with your dad, do you think it had a lot to do with the fact that you were becoming a father, or it was just more of you were just ready mentally, like, okay, let me just, you know, lock in with you, pops?
I think it was really Maddie's fault. Really, her coming, her coming. You know, it made me think at the world very differently, and I just needed to gain as much information about this process as I could. You know,
Wow.
approaches that he took. You know, he has three other kids,
Mm-hmm.
so um, anywhere that I can get information, I really sought it out, and I thought that it was time for us to reconnect and to work out whatever issues we had, so
Mm-hmm.
that he could be a granddad and I could be an excellent father.
I
Wow.
love that. I
Wow.
really do. And I mean, I
Yeah.
don't have that, but subconsciously I do want it. It's just I'm driven by principles, so it's hard
Mm-hmm.
for me to break that mold, and I really do admire you for that. So let's get into parenting. You were one of my biggest supports, support systems when I was going for custody of my son.
Mm.
You know, you taking the approach and actually going full throttle and going to trial for your daughter and getting full custody of her, that was probably one of the most empowering things I've ever seen any man do across the board. There's no sports figure that can overlap that. Yeah, there's two people that I really admire their approach. I have one person who was my basketball trainer who really took me in as his real, like, I don't want to say his son, but like a real big brother.
Right.
And you as a man to man, I want to thank you for really putting yourself on the line, because if you wouldn't have did that, I don't think I would have had enough courage to go for custody of my son. So I really,
Mm.
I really want to thank you
I
for that, bro.
appreciate those kind words. I really do
You
appreciate
know,
that, James.
so let's talk about your experience in family court. You know, how
Hmm.
was that?
So, just as you expect for any black man, family court is a horrible place.
Hmm.
It's a place where, more so than anywhere else, you are guilty of being a father until you prove that you're not. There's just an expectation
Yeah.
that you're just not worthy, that you're just not good
Mm,
enough, you're not adequate, and it takes persistence, right? You just have
Mm-hmm.
to keep proving yourself,
mm,
and keep showing these folks that, unlike the stereotypes, I do care about my child. I
Mm-hmm.
love my child more than anything else.
mm,
And once you get through, and once you show that this is not a game, you're not pretending, this is not an act for, you know, a strategic move, but really how you feel in your heart, I think
mhm.
that's when the attitudes changed. But
What
it's
was it? What was
a
it
horrible
that
place.
pushed you to keep going? Because Ak was able to keep going because he saw that you went through it.
Yeah.
What was it that helped you to keep pushing through it? Like, nah, I gotta keep going.
So in my particular situation, my ability to be a father and to see my daughter regularly was being threatened.
Mm.
So I really didn't have a choice. It wasn't, well, you know, what are you going to do? It's, okay, how do I stop this? How do I make sure that my relationship with my daughter is galvanized? It
Mm,
is bonded. There's no way to separate it.
mm,
There's no one that could affect that, who can threaten that.
mm.
Mm.
And so for me, it wasn't an option. I just had to do what was necessary so that I could see my daughter regularly, without interruption, without issue.
Mm.
So
Wow.
it was very important for me to do that.
So I had a public defense, public defense attorney, and I will say he was terrible. Right? Garbage. By far the worst. I mean, literally,
Throw him away. Throw him
if,
away.
if I could
Wow.
fight him, I'm not joking. If I could afford him, I would have broke him up in there. Listen, I'm telling you, I would have
Two
folded
pieces
him
of
in half.
biscuit. Gave him a 2-piece.
No. We're not talking about 2-piece. I'm talking about I would have folded him up. We would have had to back him up. Y'all would have been like, yo, I was a great guy, but he's in jail for murder. Like, right? But I will say, I leaned on you for a lot of information, and you broke it down to simple points, and I applied them. I honestly did, from making sure you get the right amount of time and making sure that you're the person that is handling everything. So I adjusted my work schedule. I made sure I could pick him up, drop him off. I made sure I had a good stable home. From all of these things that you had told me beforehand, and even through the process, like, yo, this is what you have to do. And then you even told me about you told me about the difference between having days and nights and how important having overnights are. And I will say, if you wouldn't have gave me that knowledge, I would have probably folded, because the public defense attorney wanted me to settle for anything. Every other weekend you can get a dinner dinner with him. I'm like, hold on, what? And I was so happy, because one thing that I did, I went for full custody. Right. And obviously our situations were much different. Like, I wasn't going, and this is not a knock or saying, but Cameron's mom is not a bad mom. She doesn't come from a bad home. She offered just as much as I did. So my battle was a lot more uphill. But what I did know is that, and this goes back to my childhood, being able to articulate myself. I knew if I went to trial and I was able to express myself, I could vocalize myself better than she could. Right. And this wasn't an attack. A lot of people that go to court, they think it's an attack. And it's like, no, I wasn't trying to attack you. I just want to assure that no one could ever tamper with my time with my child, whether you're a good parent, bad parent, green or orange.
I agree.
So let me ask you, you said you paid for a lawyer, you had a private attorney.
Yeah, I did pay for a private lawyer. And the reason is, there is a stereotype that public defenders or public attorneys are across the board bad, which isn't always true. Which isn't true, I would say, even most of the time. I think that most of the time, public defenders or public lawyers, they're in the courts, they see the judges, they're well experienced. So maybe you just had a bad experience with your attorney. But the reason why I hired an attorney in that situation is because this was my first time in this arena. I really wanted a lot of individualized attention. And that's what you're paying for. You're paying for someone who has more time to just talk to you about what's going on in your case. So that's why I hired her. Was I over the moon about her representation of me? I would say no. I thought that she did an adequate job. I thought that she spoke well on my behalf. She definitely had presence. But as far as the research, the legwork, and finding precedent in case law that would benefit us in our proposition for me having full custody, I found that stuff personally. And when you're hiring a lawyer, you don't want to be the person finding your own research.
Absolutely not.
Especially when the research is directly on point and it bears directly on the issue that you're facing. So for me, that was a big problem. I shouldn't be finding the research that saves the day. But ultimately, that's what happened. So I didn't have a great experience with my lawyer either, because I spent a lot of money to find my own research.
God. Yeah. Is it the fact that you were a lawyer yourself that pushed you to say, you know what? I'm gonna go and research this thing myself, because like,
it's a funny story. So she emailed me one Friday evening and was like, "Oh, these are the cases that I found that are similar to your case." So I ran it by my people, because as an attorney, I have a wealth of just friends and resources who I could bounce ideas off of. And my office mate at the time, Arthur Mendola, I gave him the cases. He said, "Ron, I love you, but these aren't going to do it. These aren't really good. They're so far away from your facts. Like, they're kind of similar, but they're not really." And I said, I was drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm like, my paid lawyer found this. They must be great, but in fact they weren't. And that kind of motivated me to do my own research. And I found so many things that were so on point, and it was kind of therapeutic to do the research myself, because I found so many of the fathers going through the exact situation that I went through, and their ability to be a father being challenged in the same way. And it felt so unfair, but to see it play out over and over and over in these other cases, it was therapeutic for me. I'm not the only person going through this situation.
Yeah.
I'm not alone. There are other fathers out there fighting for their kids. And that's why, after this whole thing was over and I eventually was awarded full custody, it was very important for me to share that information with, people that I care about, other men who love their children, who wouldn't necessarily have the dog in them to fight for their kids, because you think family court, you think this is where a black man goes to die. Like it's just not a great
like
place
a
for
death
us.
sentence.
Right. Yeah. It's like worse than going to trial for murder, really.
Yeah.
So like, it's important for me to be, to show visibility, to show people that it's possible for you to go in there and express yourself and show the world that Black fathers do love their children, and we do desperately want to be a part of their lives. So it was very important.
I would say this too, like obviously long term, I've always envisioned us having seminars for fathers who are experiencing the same thing. And I think with your ability to articulate it from a legal aspect and my ability to articulate it from being a social emotional aspect, it's such a good combination, because what'll happen is people don't realize the stress level of going to that through that process, it's beyond. It's like it's like this. It's always good in theory. I'm going for custody of my child, until you're actually going through custody for your child, right? And
I watched you go through it, and I couldn't fathom, like, bro.
It was so stressful. I like, and I remember when before I asked her about counseling, and people are so against counseling. And I'm like, if I wouldn't have went to counseling, or I wouldn't have had somebody to talk to, I honestly, I would have felt like I would have had like a mental breakdown because of the agony of the process, right? A lot of people look at it as like, oh, they'll automatically go to like child support or something. And it's like, listen, at the end of the day, who cares about any of that? You should want to support your child. I'm not saying that they have a right to your money, but what I'm saying is you should want to support your child. But that's obviously a whole different subject matter. But let me ask you this. So you have full custody of Maddie, which is, love it. How do you deal with that, right? Like, because obviously you're young, you're successful, but you're also a full-time dad.
Right.
So where's the balance, my man?
It's tough. The balance usually is Maddie, Daddy, as far as free time or anything else like that. But you know what you just suggest is just a different phase of life. I've had my time, and this is my time to raise a princess into a queen, right? So it just takes prioritizing your goals, just like with everything else. Just like deciding I wanted to become a lawyer and I had to go to school, deciding that I wanted to be a full-time father. It was already known to me what that was going to accomplish. It was going to be me surrendering my life in, my wants for her needs, for her wants. So suffice it to say, I wiggle in some Ron time, some free time, but majority of the time is Maddie time, and she knows that. We all know that.
And you know what, too? Any woman that comes into your life, they have to accept that. That's such an honorable thing. I mean, realistically, like when I met my wife, I didn't have custody of Kim yet, and I mean, she supported me through that like when I tell you she went to bat with me, like to the point of when the child is born, you sign off on their certificate. I didn't even have that. I had to go to Manhattan to get it, and I took off work, and I didn't know where it was. We went to LIJ, whatever the case is, and I looked at her. I'm like, she came with me. I'm like, yo, listen, I don't know. I got all the paper, but I don't have this. She's like, yo, let's go to the city. And at that moment, I was like, oh, there's my wife. There it is. That has to be my wife, because I don't know no woman that could endure that type of, I don't want to say agony, but watching someone you love go through that process is so challenging. And and one thing I will say too is when someone takes on this responsibility, it's such a empowering thing, right? So granted, you might not have all the social time that you want, but your time is well invested.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well invested. And I think for that, it's more than anything.
I want to go back to something you touched on. You talked about law school. Now, we know about the infamous test,
Oh
the
yeah.
bar exam.
Oh man.
So, if someone is a lawyer that's listening to this, I want you to explain your experience with that and how you went about going there.
So the bar exam is notoriously challenging, but for me it was especially challenging because my daughter was born the January before the bar, and the bar is July. So I was concerned about that, but I thank God for Madison. She was a good baby. She slept through the night most nights, so it was
That's deep.
manageable. The bar exam, when I took it, was a 2-day exam. The first day consisted of about 6 or 7 essays, and then like 50 multiple choice questions, but like not regular multiple choice questions. Like
Yeah.
Count me
each
out.
each one was a page. It was like big, thick responses.
Oh
It was a
no.
beast. The next day, I believe it was something like 300 multiple choice questions about different facets of the law. So it was a very challenging test. But the way I approached it like I wanted to pass that test. I wanted to accomplish. I wanted to master it. So I approached it like a job. I woke up and I left for the house, and I was at wherever I was studying for hours, maybe like 9 to 10 hours a day. I took a course on how to prepare for the test, and different signals you look out for in the questions tells you how they expect you or how they want you to answer it. So I thought that was very valuable too.
Wow. And how many times you took it?
One time. Thank God, I passed it. I passed it on my first try. It's a very challenging test, and people that look like us, generally don't do as well on standardized tests. And so a lot of people, a lot of friends of mine, it took them multiple tries because the test is just very, very, very hard. Even if you study well and you have a good understanding of the law, the test is still very challenging.
That's serious.
So would you consider Madison a big motivation in your career, just to say the least? Like because you had her probably in the beginning. So what would, like, obviously her influence, like, so you could speak to that?
Of course. So I already knew I wasn't a great standardized test taker. The SATs and the LSATs made that very clear. Like you're just not you're not the best. Like you can be as smart as you want, Ron, but like these tests are just different for you. So I knew going into the bar exam that I had Maddie. I had a job offer lined up with legal aid. So all I needed to do was pass the test. This is the only thing that was going to prevent me from, realizing my dream of becoming a lawyer and becoming a father who was fully employed. So it definitely helped with my focus. For me, there was no question. I had to pass this test, and I treated it like something that had top priority at that time. And I mastered it. I mastered the material. I did every single possible practice question offered by the course that I took. And they give you a lot of questions because they want to just overwhelm you. I took every single one of those things. But ultimately, as they said, if you study and you work hard at it, passing is a possibility. And I'm thankful that I was able to realize that.
You could have easily found a way out. I got a
daughter.
Oh, man, I
for
can't.
sure. Right. There's always a way out. There's always some way you can rationalize making something that's very important less of a priority because it's easier to do that sometimes. But when you realize that like love is such a strong motivator, like it just pushes you to do things that you're not even aware that you're capable of doing. And with this test, I felt that Madison's influence definitely propelled me.
Shouts out to the princess. So, all right. So you're so obviously becoming a father was, I mean, outside of the passing the bar, it's probably the most important thing to you, as far as events in your life. So your experience, you don't have to go into not extreme detail, but what is your experience with co-parenting? I know mine, but I want to hear somebody else's, outlook on co-parenting.
Co-parenting is it's a necessary function of raising a child. And that's just the way you have to look at it. In co-parenting, you just want to be as rational and reasonable as you can be. And, I think that eventually things will just always figure itself out. There becomes some level of things becoming normal. And I think eventually things just calm down. And I think that just being reasonable and rational and respectful. If you can do those things, you can be successful in co-parenting. And right now, I would say that we are definitely successful in co-parenting and raising Madison.
One thing I noticed, both of you have kind of like the same mindset when it comes to co-parenting, and it doesn't seem like you guys are having much backlash when it comes to it. Like a lot of other people that have terrible co-parenting situations, it's always, yo, man, I'm tired of this. But both of you guys have this positive mindset to co-parenting that I'm noticing, and you're having the same results.
You have to. I think that if you go into a thing being as positive as you can be, a positive result must manifest. I think that it just has to happen. So if you go into it like, oh, she's going to make my life hell. Oh, she's going to make this difficult. Oh, she's going to have an issue with this. Then, that's going to affect the way you phrase things and how you approach and how you speak.
Wow.
So if you go in with a positive mentality and you just try to be overly respectful, just so that things don't get lost in translation, right? Just to be safe. It tends to work out. Everyone, and then it becomes like a battle of who could be more respectful. And that's the battle I like to be a part of. You know what I'm saying? I prefer that. Like, let's see who can be most respectful in this conversation. Who can be the most accommodating? And that's the kind of competition that I think breeds great kids.
Wow. I want to say this too, right? You have full custody of Madison. I want to say basically joint, right?
Okay.
So one thing that I realized, and this is what I learned during court, that they look for the parent who has the child's best interest at heart. Right? There's no such thing as, I mean, obviously every situation, this is a subjective statement. It's obviously every situation is different, but unless the parent is just strung out on drugs in the street, just unfit parent, there's really no reason you shouldn't be able to co-parent. Now, in my experience with it, obviously Cam lives with, his mom in a different town, right? I'll give you guys one of the the rationales behind my thoughts, and this is going to be a testament to what you're saying, right? I live in a town where the school district isn't as good as the school district that his mother lives in. So when I was in court, one question they asked, it was a direct question. I'll never forget this question because what I think it did, it proved to them that I was a fit father. They asked me, they said, if you could send your child to one of these schools, which one would it be? They said my town, they said her town. Now, my reasoning behind it, I made it very clear. There was two. That was one question, and I made it very clear. I said, I would send him to the school where his mom lives, right?
Wow.
That's something, because it's a good school district, and I want the best for my child. Period. There was no, but I didn't say, I didn't say anything. I said, I didn't give any excuses. And people look at that as a sentence to losing, custody.
That was very mature of you.
No, and what it did was it actually proves to the judge that ultimately I have his best interest at heart. Because if I would say, oh, I want him to come live with me and he can go to school there, and it's like, yeah, but that school district isn't as good as that one. You can look on the ranking. I even spoke to the rankings of the school district. That school is ranked number 2 in Long Island. How I can't compete with that. So obviously it's in his best interest to go. Another one, and this is just little gems that, fathers who are taking on these things that could, keep in mind. They ask you they said, what do you think about Cameron's mom? Right? Usually, guys,
that's a trick question. Standard. That's a trick question.
that's crazy, right? That's crazy. So let me tell you.
I love it.
And what I enjoyed about the process, and this sounds crazy now, but it was genuine. Like, a lot of guys, they have such ill feelings towards their child's mom. Granted, it could be warranted. I'm not saying it's not warranted, right? But my answer was directly related to Cam. I said, she's a great mother to Cameron. I even spoke to the point of financials. Like when I was, because at a point I had 2 jobs. I was living on my own. It was hard for me. So there was some things I couldn't do financially that she could do. And I even spoke to that. And I spoke to how well he's being raised and his health, all of these things. So I have nothing bad to say about his mom. Till this day, I really don't. I'm not saying that we always get along, but it goes back to what you were saying. It's like, once you set that standard of respect,
right.
now the communication is a lot easier. I'm not saying it's perfect. Right. It's not perfect. You're going to have a little hiccups, but for the most part, it's consistent. And it allows you, what the court did was taught me that you can't be emotionally driven in principal situations, right? Because what you're going to do, what I would have did, if I would have said anything other than those words, best believe me, it would have been every other weekend. One day, no question. No question. And that's the crazy part, is her lawyer, I couldn't stand him, but he was very smart in those questions. And I think my lawyer didn't prep me. They didn't give me any kind of thing. But my genuine feeling towards his mother was that she really is a good mom, right? Wow. I would, like, granted, I might have not been the best person, but as I always say, I go, look, my situation is based on my decisions. I caused this. So at the end of the day, I understand it. And I keep that at the forefront of my mind. Like, hey, listen, you caused this. So whatever comes with it, you just deal with it. Yeah. And it gave me so much relief and confidence to be able to stand trial. And it's really a testament to what you're saying, as far as that challenge of who can be more respectful. It makes it so much easier to communicate. So much easier. So kudos to you, my friend. Kudos. All right, so here we go. Ron, I met Ron 7 years ago. I have a picture of, I don't know if you remember, I threw a bowling alley event for fathers. I don't know if you remember.
I do remember this. I do remember. This is a great event. Yeah, I remember that.
Yes, I have pictures of that, and I'm gonna put it up, so don't worry about it. But Ron used to be a big dude.
Oh yeah, he used to be a big guy.
Ron used to be a big guy, and I watched Ron go through
how big we talking?
At my biggest, we're talking like 2XL, 280.
Yes.
Yeah, I was a big dude. I was a big dude.
A big guy. Look at that.
280?
Yo, 280.
Wow.
And I watched Ron's process and his emancipation to this wonderful being now. So let's speak to your fitness journey. What sparked it?
Becoming a full-time parent, and taking everything we spoke about into account, putting your child first became like, my motto. Like, what could I do to make her life better? And growing up, I was always a big guy. That's just a part of who I've always been. But, I said that there's some challenges that come with that are unnecessary. If I could help her be more healthy with her food choices and her exercise schedule, let's do that. So we started going to the park. I taught her how to ride her first bicycle. And in doing that, you learn you have to be really quick.
You got to keep up with it.
You got to keep up with it. Because she's fearless. She'll just start riding into a brick wall or a tree, and you have to sprint. It was just wind sprint. So my fitness journey started with wind sprint, protecting Madison from hitting objects. Right. I would dive in between those objects and use my body as a cushion. But that's where it started. And then once you lose that initial big chunk of weight, you're like, wow, this is possible. And then after that, I said, well, what else can we do? Let's take the challenge a step further. Let's tone it up. Let's get some muscles. So the first time in my life, at 31, I found that I could possibly have a six-pack, have an ab.
Wow.
Okay.
Which is crazy, which I thought was just not possible. But anything is possible in love. You just work at it, you just love, and then wonderful things happen, in my opinion.
That's a testament to your discipline and how it applies across the board. All the way back to when you was in middle school. Middle school, knowing I want to be a lawyer, going into high school, going to college, taking a test, being a father, going to custody, losing the weight. That shows that discipline landed across the board. And that's something we talk about, is you can't just have discipline in one area.
You can't.
You have to be able to push that along so your success rises in all areas of your life.
I agree. You know, we keep it with discipline too. I knew that I had discipline for certain things. I just didn't know that I could apply it to other things. And in becoming a full-time father, you know, I realized that that discipline is necessary. I need to apply it to not just one aspect of my life, but to all aspects that I could control. So then once I realized that, I think that that's really where the change came. You know, between that and also just looking at the world differently. In going through that custody battle, I found the need for therapy. I thought that therapy was a huge thing that could help me through that very hard process. And therapy helped me change the way I viewed things, like the world. Before it was like, why are these things happening to me? When in therapy, they teach you how to change your perspective and you realize that like you control how you react to different stimulus. You can determine how things affect you and how they make you feel. And in learning that, I took complete control of my life, and I'm very grateful for that. I think that every Black man should look into therapy because even if you don't have a kid, even if you're not a father, this world was meant to break you. And I think that you need some guidance on how to like control your thoughts and to control how you perceive things. I think that's invaluable. We all need it, honestly.
That right there, I would say my tweak was it actually happened after I had Cam, but what really did it was when I realized I wanted to master like my sexual appetite, right? So so I practiced celibacy for like a year, like straight through. And I took it to the extreme. And what it did was once I realized I could master my body and my urges, that was the deciding factor in everything else that I needed to do. So when I learned how to discipline myself in that area, it changed my mentality. And we're big on the mentality and principles and the things that govern your mind. And to hear that through your journey, right, of, you know, going to court for full, you know, going to court and, you know, seeking full custody, your perspective was altered through your challenges, right? And we speak about this a lot where it's like people always want to look at situations negatively, right? And it's like, hey, if you always look at it negative, it's going to be negative, like you said. But if you look at it as this is an opportunity for me to get better, because how many men, and this is what I said too, I'll give you guys a little insight on what I thought. I said, even if I was to get, let's say, every other weekend, right? I can show my son the paperwork to prove that this is not what I wanted. This is something that was put on me, but I had enough guts to go through with it. And people can never take away your effort, right? That's something that is untangible. Those qualities and the discipline that it takes to even give effort. People don't realize effort it's a talent. You know, people are so quick to quit on everything, right?
That's
I mean,
true.
realistically, everything always sounds great in theory. I'm gonna lose weight. I'm gonna go for custody. I'm gonna this. And it's like, do you understand that the minute you proclaim something and you speak about it, it has to manifest, but you have to match the process with effort. They go hand in hand. And if you don't, what you're going to start to see yourself doing is become a habitual liar. Because every time you say, I'm going to do something, it doesn't happen. And then what happens is, imagine if you wouldn't did the things that you did, Madison couldn't trust you. Right? She wouldn't be able to trust you. She trusts you because of your actions. And this is what I'm big on with Cam too. I look at my kids, I look at my wife, and I tell them, like, you can trust me. And I know you can trust me because I'm going to match it with my words, my actions, and my patterns. You know, even when we talk about picking friends, like how do you pick your friends? I guess that's a good question. Because me, I'm not saying I'm vicious, but how do you pick your friends?
You know that I'm very skeptical of people generally. So it takes a lot for me to warm up to people. So it's a process. It's a process of elimination. You know, I eliminate very easily. It's not hard for me to eliminate. Or
the process of elimination.
Right.
Me too.
X.
Me too, brother. Hold it down.
So, you know, the people who remain, they clearly mean a lot to me. So yeah, I get what you're saying. It's tough.
Wow.
I would say this, right? And people don't realize who you surround yourself with, the conversations you have. That's all a reflection of who you are, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not going to entertain something that you're not. So realistically, you have to be mindful of the people you pick. And a testament to your fitness journey, I want to ask you too, what type of adjustment did you make on your eating? Because I mean, that's a major part of it, and that's hard.
It is. It is. You know, as far as the dieting was concerned, I made sure that we had a very nice, healthy dinner every night. So it would either be salmon, chicken, occasionally steak, with some sort of starch, some sort of vegetable, and that became like the basic pattern, right?
Yeah.
Because I was kind of new to cooking as well, so to make it easy for myself, we started with those three components, and from there we just built upon it. To make sure that we both had a good diet. And it's worked out because she's full of energy. I mean, like literally full of energy.
Yeah. Trust me, I know how I go.
We know.
Right. So it's working out. It's working out really good.
All right. So I don't want to catch you off guard, but we'll leave you with this one. So what do you think about marriage?
Yes, sir.
Marriage.
Yeah, we need your opinion because we're obviously very biased to marriage. All our listeners, you know, we push marriage like crazy. So you being not married, you can give us a view that we're not used to speaking on.
Of course,
Speak to them.
Of course. So I think that marriage could be a very positive thing. I think that when you have two individuals who are like-minded in their goals and how to accomplish those goals and they're able to communicate effectively, I think that marriage and partnership can be one of the best journeys, best part of your life. I, however, am not there yet. Not to say that I'll never get there.
I get you.
It's just I'm not there yet. It takes a lot of trust in a person to stay consistent in your goals. And I've met a lot of people who might share the same goals, but their effort it gets weaker, or you know, their ability to be a good partner is just not consistent.
Not the level that you see fit.
Right. And you know, just like with friendships, I'm very skeptical of people. So eventually I might get there, just not there yet, brothers. Not there.
Okay. So let me ask you this, right? Speaking from the outside in, right?
Okay.
What do you think would be the principles that would drive a successful marriage?
Oh, for sure, communication above all else. Being able to communicate effectively, to talk about the tough things, to talk about the fun things, to be able to plan, to be able to travel together. I think that's a good building block. After that, I think that a willingness to work together to accomplish goals is very important.
Humbleness, the humbleness of it.
Right. Like to put yourself aside and put the union before self. I think that would be another huge factor to have a successful marriage. You know, and that's the thing though. Everyone wants to be married. Everyone wants a wedding, but who wants to put the work in? Right? Who wants to put the effort in? And one day, you know, I might get there. You know,
one day
like,
you gotta stop saying this. One day I might get there.
We'll see.
Because I'm pretty sure you wasn't saying I might be a lawyer.
True.
Or I might be a good father. You know what I'm saying? You didn't say I might be a good father. You went into it like, no, I'm gonna be a good father. So you had to have the mindset, I'm gonna be married, I'm gonna find the woman that fits me, I'm gonna be a great husband, I'm gonna have a great wife, we're gonna build what we want together. That's the mindset you gotta have moving forward.
Let me play devil's advocate.
Okay. That's what I like.
With all those other things you could control, as far as education, if you put the effort in, as far as study time, if you work hard, if you do your internships, you do all these things, you can get good grades in school, you can get a job. If you put in the time, as far as like being a loving parent and doing, you know, the tough stuff like discipline and also doing the fun things, like you could be a good parent. But as far as a partnership, like I feel like controlling what's outside of my body, right? Controlling who I meet, when I meet them, and what phase of their life. A person's ability to stay consistent. Like I think that might be outside of me.
That is outside of you.
So
even within that though, you still have to take faith because you went through the process, but you still had faith that you would pass. So now you have to go through the process with your partner, knowing that I'm giving her me and I'm having faith that she's going to continue to go on this path with me. Now, the end goal, I have to have faith we will both get there together. Me putting in my work and she putting in her work. So at the end goal, you like Art talks about all the time, patterns. You'll notice the patterns. And as a man, we say we're the foundation. And like Yo says, we're the bottom. So the characteristics that you want her to have, she should be able to attribute them by watching you.
Of course.
So you have to make sure you're on point so that wherever y'all trying to go, it doesn't fail.
Right. I agree. And I am positive. And I think that one day, I think that I'm a romantic. One day
I know that's right. Yeah.
I'll probably be married. But we'll see.
Yeah.
One thing I will tell you guys too is I think that the reason why I think you're going to be successful, matter of fact, I know you'll be successful in marriage. This is why, right? And you have to remember, and we realize this amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
Our wife, his wife, my wife, they actually watch us. They actually study us. So when the way you go about your everyday life, the consistency that you show, she'll adopt that ideology.
Yep.
And it'll become her philosophy, right? Not because even if she didn't have it, she's gonna look at you and go, "Oh, I like that." Because the things that attract her to you will eventually become a part of her because of as much time you spend together. But one thing I will tell you is that don't rush it, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
You have a daughter.
Yeah, take your time.
She's priority. And you're obviously gonna, whoever it is, we know we're gonna be like, oh, she's perfect because you're not gonna bring nobody around the
right. If she's gotten through my test somehow, then she's wonderful, wonderful person.
Exactly. And I think ultimately, I think you should look at it as trust your judgment and have faith that what your desires are will come true because they've come true thus far.
Exactly.
You really have you're one of those people that I can look and I'll say, look, regardless of the outcome, regardless of the steps, so far in your life, things that you've put your mind to and the discipline you had for your vision, it has came true. So the reason why we're big on marriage is number one, obviously, we believe in the union. And of course, we want to mirror, what it is, that household. And we're big on that as far as showing our kids what it is that we want out of them, but living it as well.
I agree.
I think you're gonna be fine. I mean, realistically, I give him another maybe 2 or 3 years.
I can see it, man.
You know what it is? He got it.
He got it. I see it in him.
Hey, listen.
I won't hold my breath. I might pass out.
All right, nobody. Listen. If anybody heard that, he didn't mean it. He didn't mean it. I'm saving him. He didn't mean it. He meant it. Anyway, listen. I want to thank you so much, bro. This has been a challenging task, and I don't know why, but I'm telling you, this is probably going to be our best one thus far. It has to be. The challenges of it and
was
how
too
we
much.
overcame it.
Yeah.
It was intense.
Yeah.
But we want to thank you. I love you like a brother. You've been such an inspiration. And I want you to continue on and do whatever that your heart desires, man. Seriously.
I appreciate you, brother.
Don't walk in faith. Don't be fearful. And I know you're going to be great. And I gotta catch up with you too about doing the mock trial with the kids. I'm telling you. I know this over here.
That would be great. That'd be great. I'm down.
Ron, definitely. I want to say I appreciate your time. Because time is money.
Of course.
And to put you through all this podcast issues, man, I really appreciate that for real.
Anytime, brother.
Me recently getting to know you, man, I really grown to love you, man. Your character, who you are. Like I can see through people. You are who you are. And I can see that. And I respect you for that. And that's how I know going further in anything you do, you're going to be successful. And you're going to be an inspiration to so many other people. And continue to walk in who you are. I can see that. You walk in who you are. And I love that about you. And thank you so much for coming, being our first guest. And
Of course.
you're definitely gonna be back. We're gonna need
Of
you
course.
back.
I'm here for you, brothers. I'm here for you, brothers.
Appreciate you, man.
Anything you need. Thank you.
And with everything else, there's gonna be ups and downs, but keep God before anything, my man.
Oh yeah.